This is To the Front. Tools for today's top agents.
Hey, welcome back to the Front, episode number 28. 28 episodes of content that we hope is going to advance your business, your agency forward. Man, thank you so much for following along. A ton of you are listening every single week, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Again, thanks so much. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, because here's the deal. If you've been a part of our podcast, we're not here to sell you anything. We're here to give you content that's going to help your business to move forward. And today is much of the same. Listen, I want to tell you about something that you got going on in your business and you don't even know. In fact, let's call it a secret poison. And it goes on in every business that sells anything. I don't care if you're in insurance or banking, mortgage, you sell carpet, whatever it is. You've got a secret poison, and that poison is called excuses. Excuses. Now, why is it secret? Because sometimes the excuses that your sales team, or maybe even yourself, have had, sometimes they're secret. They don't verbalize them. Maybe what your team's verbalizing is, yeah, we want to sell. We want to help this grow. And maybe you're saying that to yourself. I want to grow. I want to sell. But the secret poison is excuses about and they're excuses that you tell yourself about why you can't sell, and maybe in a sales opportunity, why you can't ask for the business, why you can't close. And so that's what today's episode is about: excuses that will destroy your sales, reasons why you and your team don't sell, or why you can't close. And to talk about that, I'm bringing back on my twin brother, Kyle Norsworthy. Welcome back to the podcast, Kyle.
Glad to be back. Appreciate you having me,
dude.
Last one was such a hit.
It was a banger, man. Banger. Yeah. Last episode I had Kyle on was called the Referral Gold Mine. I've actually had some agents reach out, and they're implementing the tips and tricks that you gave them. So just absolutely fantastic. But I'm gonna bring Kyle on. By the way, just a refresher on who Kyle is. He is the sales vice president at Guardian Savings Bank. They're in Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. Is that right?
We have branches in Ohio and Kentucky, but we do service. We service basically 40 states, but primarily our main footprint is going to be Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania.
And Pennsylvania, right? And so the reason I want to bring Kyle, remind us how many sales people do you manage that are kind of under your purview?
So that's kind of a loaded question. I've got about 8 direct reports, but then I oversee another, probably 15 or 20, maybe 30 when it comes to lead generation, sales prep, marketing, stuff like that. So it's kind of but as far as direct sales guys who I'm managing day in and day out, I have 8.
Of 8, yep. So if you hear that, that's a sales team of 8. And I'm sure, Kyle, that you have heard excuses, maybe verbal, or maybe you've seen them play out. But listen, here's the thing about sales. Sales is hard if you want it to be hard. Sales is hard if you want it to be hard. And one of the things about the Norsworthys, and I want to say this, I don't try to brag, but we ain't got much to brag about. But I will tell you this about the Norsworthys. We may not be the best looking cats in the world. We may not be the smartest, but doggone it, we can freaking sell.
That's right.
We can sell, and we've always been able to sell, and maybe it's because we have a low shame tolerance, Kyle. I don't know.
But I don't know. You should ask our wives. Let's see what they say about it. But they didn't marry us for our looks, so
because that was the biggest sale job we've ever made is our wives.
Right.
That was the biggest sale job. But the reality is, though, Kyle and I, probably combined have close to 50 years of sales experience. We both manage teams of folks that sell every day. And today we want to talk about that secret poison that's existing and lying in your business, which are the excuses. And we're going to talk about 2 fronts today. We're going to talk about the excuses about why they won't sell. And then we're also going to talk about excuses about why they can't close. or maybe you have heard it, ask for the business. They're real good about starting conversations, but when it comes down to say, hey, let's get this going for you right now, how about that? They get cold feet, and they're almost embarrassed to ask for the sale. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Hey, Kyle, I actually heard I saw a meme on social this morning, and it said that if you're not selling, it's because you don't believe in the product or you're embarrassed by the product. Tell me your thoughts on that. Do you think that's true? If you're not selling, it's because you either don't believe in the product or embarrassed by it.
I think for me, that was actually when I was prepping for this this podcast. That was one of my points. Hey, they don't believe in the product or the service, right? Because we oftentimes sell services. Not all things we sell are tangible products. They're services too. So, and that's actually that's a tough one to overcome, because if you don't believe in what you're selling, you're not going to be super emphatic by it. In fact, I actually came from an institution. I'm not going to name what it was. It's a fine institution, but I didn't believe in what we sold. I didn't believe in the pricing structure. I didn't believe in the benefit to my clients. And ultimately that's why I left. We talk a lot about value proposition in my business, and there just wasn't enough value proposition for my clients in the company I used to work for. So that's a big one is what, if you don't believe in it, you're not going to sell it. Or if you do sell it, you're doing it out of force because you have to, or you're doing it out of obligation, right? So that's a tough one.
Or you're going to do it minimally, right? You're going to just do the bare minimum in sales. All right. So this is how this episode is going to work. We've each come loaded with some excuses that we've heard, and maybe when you hear these, you're going to be like, "Oh, dude, that's what my team says." You want to listen in, because, again, like I say, we try not to brag about a lot, but I will say that I can sell, and I know I can manage teams that sell, right? Both from leading front runner back from 0 agents to now we serve coming up on 2,000 agents, almost 15,000 team members. And then my recent endeavor about this print shop. I own a series of print shops as well that started, somewhere in the realm of $500,000 a year in sales. Last year we did 1.5 million, and we're trending towards about 1.8 million this year, right? Yeah. And that's 100% for sales, not luck, because we actually go out and sell and we're beating these excuses. And I know Kyle's in the same way. It's been so great. We talked about this last episode, Kyle, but it doesn't matter what the mortgage climate is or the rates, you're producing. I mean, even last month you crushed it.
That's right. I did close to $5 million in applications, a couple, $2-3 million in fundings. But hey, let me just start off by saying this. I don't like to toot my own horn too much, because that's just not what I do. For all of you managers, business owners, there's a big thing that you got to hear today, okay? And this is going to be the one that you can't overcome, all right? And I know we're going to talk about solutions and how you overcome the stuff.
Right.
Some people are not meant to sell.
There you go.
Right? So if you ask me, go paint me a picture of something, I'll never be able to do it. No matter how much you train me, no matter how much education I get, no matter how much you show me, you could take my hand and direct it on the canvas. I'm not going to be able to do it. God did not give me that skill set. So same is true with sales. And as a manager, as an owner, your number one job is to identify those individuals who can do it. I sat in a meeting all day yesterday with a realtor team, a really prominent realtor team here in Cincinnati. It was a smaller team. It was a subset of a bigger team, but I was invited to their team meeting. And he said something that was super profound to me. They make all of their agents and employees take this, for lack of a better word, personality test when they come into the firm. It was a Keller Williams firm. And they said the outcome of that test is super telling. And what they do is they try to mold that person into the organization by the outcome of that. And one of the key indicators is, hey, can this person sell or not, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're in a super heavy sales business where all your employees are expected to sell, your number one job is to figure out who will never sell. Okay. Because there are people who cannot sell and they won't sell. There's no matter how much you teach them, train them, motivate them, they're never going to do it. That's just not their skill set. And that is okay, but they don't belong on your team. So that's that's kind of the hard thing that you have to consider.
That's a fantastic point, actually. That's a really good way to start this, right? Because we're talking about people that can sell.
That's right.
We're not talking about people that are naturally not gifted that way. In fact, if you're in the insurance world, a great service to use, and again, they're not paying us for this, is called CTS. Actually, the company's called Can They Sell? It's by a guy named Steve Suggs. You want to go check that out because you can run tests on your team before you hire them. And this test is pretty doggone accurate profile to see if they can sell. I'm sure there's other services out there for other industries. You ought to really look at that before you hire a salesman. Okay, let's do this. We're going to alternate on excuses and let each other sort of come up with some solutions to that. So Kyle, I'm going to let you go first. Throw out the first excuse that
Okay, this is a popular one. You probably have it on your list, all right?
Here we go. Let's go.
They're afraid of being told no.
Oh, yeah.
You should be probably marking it off that list right now, right? So, funny story, when I started in sales was 23 years ago, and I was at the old National City Bank, and there was this hybrid role where you were a teller and then you were a personal banker. And my old manager, he was teaching me how to sell, right? And he was teaching me, all this and that. And he says, Kyle, come back to my office. And I came back. He's like, hey, I want you to make some phone calls today. And we were at this point, I don't know what we were pushing, maybe a credit card. I don't know. But I said, okay, well, who am I calling? And he handed me a phone book, a good old fashioned phone book. All right. He said, pick someone, call them, or call 10. And I'm like, well, they don't know me or National City Bank, or how do they, I go there. They don't. He's like, so he's like, are you afraid of being told no? And I said, yeah, well, no, I just don't know. I mean, he's like, okay, even better. If you don't know them, you don't know you. Then if they say no, there is no love lost. So that was kind of my first foray into sales, and making those 6 or 7 first dials was difficult because, it's in that fear of saying, what if they say no?
Right.
And so I think for me, that's a big hurdle with a few of my team members is they just don't want to be told no, and part of that is because, and we'll talk a little bit about this maybe in a different setting, is they don't know how to overcome an objection. All right. Yeah. There's several models of overcoming objections you can use, but they've either never been taught how to overcome it. They don't know where to go from the no. And, I had a guy call me yesterday. I have a True Green lawn service, and he calls me and he says, hey, we've had a lot of rain the last month or so, and mosquitoes are everywhere. We should come treat your yard. And I said, I'm sorry, not at this time. He says, okay, thank you, and hangs up.
Wow. Yeah.
Hangs up. Did not try to overcome my objection, didn't ask any questions, didn't try to understand why I said no to begin with. But and then one other thing, again, I was sitting in that sales meeting yesterday at Keller, and this is an incredible leader who leads this team. And he said, hey, there is when we get these leads, they buy these leads off of realtor.com and things like that. And he said, out of 100 leads, your penetration is probably going to be 1%. Our goal was to get you to 5%, right? By overcoming objections, by offering a different value statement. But he said 1% is what you're probably going to land if you are a good salesman, right?
Right.
If you are a good salesman. So that would be my first one, is being afraid of being told no.
Being told no. Yeah, I hear that one a lot. That was actually on my list as well. And two things I think I want to encourage our listeners, and this is what I encourage our teams, other folks that I talk to about saying no, right? I think the first is to help people to understand the psychology behind it, right? The psychology behind it. And what happens is when you're afraid to be told no, it's because it's too connected to your own self-worth. And so that team member, that person that's selling, it feels that being told no is going to be not only just a no to the product, but it's going to be a no to them. It's going to be a no to the person. And some of that stuff is kind of deep rooted. It probably started a long time before they came on your team. So first off, you got to get to the root of the psychology of being told no and disconnect that from the person, right? And so there's multiple ways to sort of get through that. But one thing that I do to help people get over the psychology is before they even start selling, I want to manage their expectations. when I manage their expectations, I want to tell them that you are going to get told no probably 300% or 400%, 3 or 4 times more than you will be told yes. And depending on your industry, it might be 8, 9, 10, right? Whatever that is. So when I help manage their expectations, I tell them on the front end, you're going to be told no. And most often it's not going to be you, right? So disconnect it from you, right? And so that's actually part of, Kyle, you brought up that personality test. That's going to be really important going in, knowing your team, because if they are sort of naturally bent towards some confidence, some self-confidence issues, you're going to have to spend overtime reinforcing that no is going to be a part of the job and managing the expectations up front. But the second thing you brought it up, I think was really important. I want to hone in on this. The objections, the overcoming objections. You should provide your team with a sheet of the most common objections that they're going to hear. In fact, if you're a front runner user, we actually have a section in our software called word tracks. And inside of those word tracks, we have, 100, 200 sales word tracks in there. And guess what? On every single one, we have built-in objections and pivots that actually will follow your team down the page. And like one of the most common objections or being told no is, I can't afford it. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But the cool thing about the script is that all you can do is click it, and then there's some words to say with that objection. Because here's the thing, with an objection, Kyle, would you agree to this? When you're overcoming an objection, you're not trying to get them to turn a no to a yes. You're trying to get them to go from a no to a let's keep talking.
That's right.
Right. It's a no to a let's keep talking. Right. So that takes away the pressure of saying you got to say yes right away. It's, hey, will you just keep the conversation going?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think that you just said it right there. For us, it's, part one of our model. I mean, and like you have your own model at Front Runner, but part of our model in my sales team is, hey, we want to first, affirm what they said. If they said no, say, hey, I hear you saying that maybe this wouldn't benefit you. Let me just ask you a couple questions here just to make sure that I understand kind of where you're coming from. And so we'll go into a questioning strategy of no more than 2 or 3 questions to try to get to the why behind the what, right? The why behind the no. People say, they're going to say no. They're going to tell you, they're not going to say no, and this is why I'm saying no. They're going to say, no, I'm good. Not interested.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And you
tell you
get
why.
emotions out of it, right? When you get told no, you got to watch your face and not look depleted, but it's almost like you've got to sort of get on their side. Like, hey, I know why you'd say no. Or I know why it might not be interesting. You have to almost kind of like pseudo agree with them. Just to
Absolutely.
keep the going.
You have to empathize with them. That's the word we use, is empathize with your client, saying, hey, I completely understand why this may not feel like it's the right move for you, or why you may not see the value in refinancing. That's kind of in my terms. Let me ask you just a couple questions about your current financial picture. And we'll go into certain things about, budgeting and money saving, and what are your 5-year goals, and what does your family look like, and those kinds of things. And then we'll kind of start backing into, hey, let's, so that's the second step is questioning. Third is starting to provide, right? So we start with empathizing, and then you listen, right? You ask questions and you listen. You don't try to convince them of why they should turn their no to a yes. Let's just let's listen to them. So that's an important part of our process here.
Yeah, man, I felt like we could do a whole episode on overcoming the no.
Super passionate about it.
Or dealing with the no, right? Because any good salesman is not afraid of no. They're just not.
To me, there is nothing more euphoric than turning a no to a yes. Right. But doing it over a series of weeks or months, right? That's right. Because if you're able to convince them yes within the first 10 minutes after they said no, it probably wasn't a firm no anyway, right? Or maybe they don't qualify for what you're doing. But if you continue to work on them, because you truly believe that what you're offering will help them or their company, that's the true gratifying part of it, at least what I do.
Oh, I think that's a good point. I would rather have a slow, informed yes than a fast, ignorant yes.
That's right. We in our world, in our mortgage world, if somebody says yes too fast to refinance, they probably don't qualify, and they probably asked several banks for money.
Good
So
point.
typically a fast yes is not a good thing in my world.
Not a good
because
thing.
you know they're probably not qualified. So
That's right. All right. Hey, I've got my excuse. I want to throw that out there that I hear a lot, and it's this: what if I get asked a question that I can't answer? I've gotten this excuse from multiple salespeople, is that I'm a little afraid because I feel like I don't know the product well enough, or they're
Yep.
going to bring something up that I don't know how to answer, and it's going to be stuck in an awkward position, and I'm going to be embarrassed. All right. So that is an excuse that I get. Do you want to take a stab at that, Kyle?
Oh, that was on my list as well, and that kind of goes along with product knowledge and confidence, right? People want to know the answer. If you're selling, you should be the expert, right? That's what people think. That
Right.
couldn't be farther from the truth. So I have a new guy that started on my team a few months ago, and I'm encouraging him to make phone calls. And when someone asks a question and that he doesn't know, this is what he says. He says, "Hey, that's a fantastic question. I've got a decent idea of what happens in this or how to answer your question, but let me just huddle up with management, make sure that I'm giving you the best information, and I'll call you right back."
Yeah.
And say that with confidence, right? So just because you don't know the answer does not mean you're not the expert. I've been in this industry 23 years, right? And I get questions every week where I have to kind of step back and be like, you know what? Let me just think about that, right? Things change. So you may know an answer to a question, and the industry's changed, or the regulations have changed, or the way you do it's changed. So, but that's a big one. People tend to shy away from selling because they want to be the expert.
That's right.
And if they feel they're not the expert, then they don't want to sell it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to start the overcoming of this. I tell my sales folks this: I don't want you to be the expert. I want you to be the guide. And experts are know-it-alls, and to be honest with you, a lot of people don't want to buy from know-it-alls. There's an arrogance to it. But who do people want to buy from? They want to buy from a guide, and here's the cool thing about a guide. A guide doesn't need to know all the answers. They need to know where to get them. And that's exactly what you said. It says, that's a fantastic question. I'm going to find that answer out for you. Now, here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be like, I don't really know. And, I don't know if that really matters. You never want to project that. You never want to project that either the person's questions that they asked didn't matter, nor do you want to project that you just really don't know and you don't know where to get the answer. No, you're a guide. So the first 5 seconds after they ask you, or first 2 seconds after they ask you a question that you don't know, are the most important. And it should be something like this. You know what? That's a really great question. I know why you would want to answer that. You know what? I'm going to find that answer out for you. Or you could say what your strategy was. Is, hey, I've got a pretty good idea, but I want to double check this. Let me, get back to you in 5 minutes. Or, hey, I'm going to write that down and follow up with you tomorrow on that. Is that okay? There's a lot of ways that you could frame that, but the most important thing is to answer quickly in some way. And the number one goal that you're trying to get them to understand is that you are their guide and you will find out that answer for them.
You know what you said. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I want to highlight something really quick,
Yeah.
So it's not missed. Invalidating their concern or their fear or their question is the worst thing you can do.
That's right.
In my opinion, that is, because you're telling them that, hey, you're dumb or you're stupid or you're whatever for having that concern or that question. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to make sure we didn't miss that. That's
huge.
The worst thing you can do.
There are no dumb questions from someone who you want to buy from you. There are no
That's
dumb
right.
questions. Now, you might secretly think that's dumb, but you should never project that. And I got to tell you, I've sat in a lot of sales meetings with people that are selling, and a person asks them a question. They almost make them feel like silly for asking the question. Either the question was too simple or the question was maybe unrelated. You're going to get that a lot too when you're selling. People are going to ask those deflecting sort of questions that don't really matter. You even have to figure out how to do questions that really have nothing to do with what you're selling and bring those questions back into the fold. But you don't have to know everything to sell what you're selling. Why? Because people love buying from guides, not experts. In fact, there's a great resource I want to throw out there for you about being the guide. It's by a guy named Donald Miller. The book is called a Storybook. It's called Storybook, right? There's actually a whole movement by a guy named Donald Miller, but his biggest story brand, and his big assertion in that book is that people aren't looking for a hero because they're the hero. People are looking for a guide. And so in sales, you present yourself as the guide, and you'll never have to worry about having all the answers. You just have to have confidence that you're going to go find out what the answer is.
Love that. That's fantastic.
Okay, next excuse. Throw it out there, Kyle.
All right, here we go. It's going to piggyback on my last one. All right, you all ready for it? They're afraid of the customer saying yes.
Oh, explain that.
All right, let me dive into it a little bit, right? So they're afraid of them saying yes. And what that means is, okay, wow, I've got the buy-in. I've got to really execute this. Where do I go? What do I do next? How do I reaffirm? So I see a lot of guys who they're like, we're offering this fantastic rate special, right? I keep going back to more. It's what I do for a living. And then they're like, well, what do I do when they say, yeah, let's go for it, right? Again, maybe lack of training, lack of confidence, right? But they're afraid of someone saying yes. What do I do next? How do I, and that's going to get more into closing the deal, right? Because you don't truly close the deal until they sign, till you close the deal, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into that. But to me, that's a big one. What I'm afraid of them saying yes. And then what do I do when I don't want to look stupid and I don't want to look like, I don't want to be the snake salesman. And then you're second guessing yourself about, oh, did I really tell them the right way? Is it really going to benefit them? And so they're quite simply afraid of the yes.
Interesting. So that really does connect back to their belief in the product.
Yes.
Like there does need to be some basic knowledge on how to help someone take the next step in their purchase, right? Whether it's sign this, sign that, go there, right? So it seems like almost salesmen need to not only understand what they're selling, they need to understand the next step in the process. Maybe it's some sort of an onboarding or paperwork or something like that. But afraid of the yes, I've actually never heard of it like that.
Well, and here's the reality: you're told no so much as a salesman. You're just used to it, right? So you're just dialing because you're filling up the time, and then someone says, "Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it." Okay, yeah, great. Let me figure out what we do next, right?
Yeah.
And so we actually train on that here on my team. Is, hey, expect the yes, right? Be confident. They're going to tell you yes. And then how do we execute from that? And because you must have confidence all through that process. If you lose confidence during any part of this, they can back out. So you know what? I changed my mind, right?
Yeah.
So we got to have confidence after the yes and say, okay, great. Let me get you started. This is how we're going to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're going to connect and you're going to send emails and be like, hey, it's like for me, when I take a new loan application, I say, hey, I'm going to follow up with an email. I'm going to tell you what docs you need. I'm going to lay out next steps for you that you can expect in this process. And then, hey, does that sound good to you? Yep. Any questions before I let you go? Nope. Hey, you got my phone. You can text me.
Yeah.
So at any rate, that's kind of the stuff that I do to try to reaffirm after the yes. But people are afraid of being told yes.
Yeah, man, we sell the exact same way because that's how I do it at Front Runner. As soon as they say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it, I'll say, hey, fantastic. I say the same thing every time. I say, fantastic. Here's an unofficial welcome to the family. We then go through the sign-up form. When the sign-up form says success, I said, now here's your official welcome to the family. I'm going to tell you what your very next step is. There's this onboarding form. I'm going to ask for 10 to 15 minutes of your time. As soon as our team gets that, it's going to be 4 to 6 business days. They're going to set everything up. And then here's how we're going to communicate with you from that point. So you're going to sort of be the guide, give them what their expectations should be after the yes. Right. The worst thing that you can do is if you've done a great job bringing clarity to the product, what you're selling, then you need to be equally as concerned about bringing clarity into their next steps.
Well, and let me just throw this in here. You've got to be able to read the customer, right?
Yeah.
Some customers want to know what the entire process looks like from start to finish. Some just want you to light the next step.
Yeah. Great.
And you have to be very, very, and I'll say this sometimes people, hey, listen, you don't have to worry. I'm going to make sure that you don't miss anything. All right.
Right.
And then so some people are like, hey, I'm going to lay out a timeline of all these things that are going to happen between the yes and between the closing. So, and you got to be very good at that. It's figuring out who you're dealing with, right?
Being able to read the room.
Read the room. If you're dealing with an engineer, they're going to want to know every step from here till
Right.
when they pay their loan off in 30 years. All right.
Yep.
So, but then some people are like, you know what? Hey, just tell me what to do.
If you're dealing with me, I just want to know what I need to do tomorrow.
I'm pretty sure that might be the case.
Yeah, don't even, back in my preaching days, we used to say it this way: a great sermon can turn into a bad sermon with 5 extra minutes. And so, right, like you've got the point home. You're great, you're good, but your inability to read the room will turn a great message into a bad one. All right, so hey, that's a great point. Afraid of the yes. Here's my next excuse that drives me nuts, and here it is. It's just not the right time or season or day. I get that all the time. Like, you know what? It's summer. People are not really interested in that. I think I'm gonna wait. Or hey, it's December, man. People are checked out and they're doing the holiday thing and maybe whatever. Or it's Friday. It's noon. People are thinking about their weekends. I don't wanna. Oh, that thing that drives me crazy. It's not the right season or the time or yada 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 yada. I hear that a lot. So tell me, what you have a team member walks in your office and says, you know what, Kyle, it's November and people are kind of thinking about the holidays and I don't want to bug people and maybe we'll just reapproach it in the middle of January. You and I have a term for that. Do you want to guess what that term is?
It's called the low energy potato. That's what I call
low energy potato. Low energy, right? So how would you overcome that excuse that if your team gives you that?
Well, so, I mean, for me, it's, in my industry, it's super easy, right? I mean, if someone says, oh, it's the wrong season, it's Christmas time. Hey, great. Everybody's home. They're ready to talk, right? They have time for you now. During the middle of their employment or their job, they don't have time to talk to you, right? Everyone's home. Everyone's off. They have time to talk to you, right? So that's number one, how I overcome it. Number two is as I encourage them to bring pictures of their family in their office. That's something that I do. Most of my guys are commission structured.
Yeah.
Actually, all of them are. And I'll say, if there's ever a day, and you know what, I'm guilty of it sometimes. I don't want to make that call. I'm a little tired. I look at my family. I got a picture and say, you know what, are they worth an extra 5 phone calls or whatever the case may be? And the answer is absolutely yes. So it's, and we'll talk, and it kind of leads into my next point, which I'll go into in a minute, but that is a problem. It's a huge problem. And again, some of those people are deflecting because they're thinking about something else, right? They're thinking about their weekend plans. They got something going on in their family that's bugging them. And so for me, I get to the root of, okay, well, why do you feel that way? And does it really matter if they tell you no at this point? If they tell you no, hey, it's holidays. Hey, fantastic. When's a good time for me to call you first of the year?
Yeah.
I'll put it in my calendar and I'll give you a call then.
That's right. Yeah. So that's a great tactic that, hey, we want you to keep selling and, use the, hey, tell me a good time for you sort of tactic. I tell my team that even in tough seasons or off seasons or when people are busy, I'm not asking you to make the sale. I'm asking you to plant a seed. And that sort of takes the pressure off a little bit, is to say, yeah, now you and I would both agree there is definitely some seasonality to sales depending on what field you're in. There are definitely seasonality. It's very tough to sell swim trunks in the winter, but so we're not asking you sometime to say you got to be able to sell it every season. No, but you need to be able to plant seeds in every season. So if you're trying to sell swim trunks in the winter, do you know what the seeds you're planting is right now? You're planting the seeds of a really warm beach coming up in 3 or 4 months, and man, aren't you excited about that? I'm excited about that. Right. And then guess what happens a few weeks later? Says, you know what? Hey, that beach we were talking about, I've got like these fantastic new swim trunks that like make your butt look smaller and they dry really quickly. Hey, would you be interested in that? Say, man, come on now. Come on now. You just call me Johnny Appleseed because
Johnny Appleseed.
That's all you're doing is you're planting seeds, and then take note of the seeds that you've planted. Take note of the conversation so that you can build on it so you're not starting from zero on the next one. All right. Kyle, do you want to do one more excuse or do you want to pivot to an excuse of why people won't close?
Looking at my notes here. You know what? I am going to do one more as to why they won't do it. Okay.
Let's do
And
it.
this one is more for you managers and sales leaders and things like that. All right. Um, they're not motivated for a reason. Okay. And you got to figure that reason out.
Wow.
So hold on. And it generally comes with compensation and recognition. Okay. So look at your income structure. How do you pay your people? Are they motivated? Back in the day, we I was at a bank where they had these personal bankers, right? And they were selling. They had this thing called the scorecard, and so you'd sell a home equity line of credit, you got 2 points. You sold a checking account, you got 1 point, and you do all these activities, and you have all these points, and it made 0 sense, right? At the end of the quarter, they told you what you made, right? And it was always a big question mark, what you made, right? So at the end of the quarter, you said, "Oh, I only made $1,000 for a quarter worth of work," I worked my butt off. Well, how do I get more? How do I do more?
That's right.
So make sure your people understand how they're compensated, right? And so sometimes when you don't know how you're compensated, maybe you don't feel like your compensation is enough. It prevents them from making those dials or making those sales. That's number one. Number two, sometimes people are more motivated by recognition as opposed to money. And let me dive into that for just a second. I'm one of those guys. Now, don't get me wrong. I like money. All right. I need money, but nothing makes me more excited than when our Friday stack ranking comes out and it goes over, okay, this is where the entire bank sees it. Hey, this is who has had the most applications, the most fundings thus far, and I want to be on top. That motivates me, right?
Right.
That may not motivate everybody. So as a manager, figure out what motivates your salespeople, all right? And if one of the reasons why they may not sell is because they don't understand how they're compensated and how sales activity would result in higher compensation for them.
It's like you and I were in the same womb together. That's a bad joke. I'm sorry. It's like because dude, my first ever episode on Frontrunner, I made a point that about how people build their compensation models, and one of those was if your team doesn't understand how they're paid, they won't sell for you. That was number one. And then 2 episodes ago, I talked about 4 powerful ways to bonus your team without money, and it was building on the premise that some people love being publicly appreciated, or they're more motivated by time off.
And I'm ashamed to say it, I didn't watch those episodes. So that actually proves that we are intricately connected, but it's the truth. People are not always motivated by money.
That's right.
They either are motivated by, hey, you know what, you did a really good job. We talk a lot about the love languages, right? How do you love your partner? Is it acts of service? Is it words of affirmation? Same thing in sales, right? How does your person want to be recognized?
That's right. Yeah, this is probably not a great time for a Diddy reference, but
oh gosh,
yeah, that's all about baby. That was back when he was Puff Daddy, not Diddley the Diddler or whatever, the baby oil guy. Okay, I digress. So yeah, fantastic. Well, why people won't close? Number one, maybe they're just unmotivated. So they're going out and they're selling, they're saying the thing, whatever. But when it comes time to ask for the business, they're not really motivated because they don't understand their compensation plan, or they don't understand, or they're just not motivated. Right.
Go to your employee and say, hey, if someone's lacking in their production, hey, just do you understand how you're compensated? Is there anything? And don't say it sarcastically. Just say, I really want to make sure you understand how you make money at the bank. And then also say, hey, how do you like to be recognized? What motivates you, right? Too many managers, we don't ask that question, and we should.
That's right. That's right. Okay, here's my first excuse why people won't close. And I've heard this so much, and it drives me crazy. In fact, and I've seen it play out. The salesperson does a great job presenting the product or service. They identify the pain point for the customer, and then they provide a solution to that pain point. But then they won't ask for the business. And here's what they say: it's awkward. It's awkward. It's awkward. It's awkward to ask for the close? And that question always just drives me crazy. But Kyle, I've heard it so often. It's kind of awkward to ask for that. And I've been thinking about that in preparation for this podcast. Why do some people do a great job at presenting the problem, selling the solution, but when it comes to the moment where you say, hey, would you like to go ahead and get started? Or I can get that started for you today for, a free trial. Or, hey, we can go ahead and get this going. Or would you like to buy? Or however you present the ask, they feel like it's awkward. So I've thought about that a little bit. And what I think it comes down to is they're just unprepared. They're unprepared. That asking for the business has to be a point of preparation, right? That if it feels awkward, it's probably not because it's awkward. It's probably because you're unprepared. It's you're unprepared for that. And I think that comes back down to even giving your team some scripts to ask for the business. Don't assume that they know how to ask, and don't assume that as soon as you finish the sales presentation that the customer is going to do the ask for you. Sometimes
That's right.
Sometimes the customer might say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and get this started. But I'm going to tell you something. That's few and far between. When I sell front runner or I sell printing or sell whatever it is, there's always a moment when the conversation's kind of wrapped up. I've read the room, right? And I avoid this killer statement. Are you ready for the killer statement, Kyle? Here's the killer statement.
Yep.
This is the statement that every salesperson needs to wipe out of their vocabulary, and it will kill your business. Here is the killer statement. If you want to think about it, take some time and think about it and let me know.
Oh, no. No. You're giving them a lifeline. You're giving them an out.
Statement right out of them. You want to make them say yes or no. And honestly, it doesn't really matter what they say, right? Because if you're a great sales manager, you've already helped them to prep for both. But I really think it's because you have not prepped them, if it's awkward, about some asking for the business lines, right? So here's my close line at front. Here's my close line at front runner. I am totally, in fact, I say it just like this. Hey, listen, we've talked about a whole lot. I know it's like drinking out of a fire hydrant. Hey, and then I say, I actually can go ahead and get this started for you. It's a free trial. It's not going to cost you anything. I'm going to go ahead and right over to the sales page and get this going. How's that sound?
Oh, that's the assumptive sale there.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Right. So I make them tell me no. I don't ask them, would you like to buy or would you like to take the next step? I assume the sale. But it's because I'm prepped. I know exactly what I'm saying. If I'm selling printing, right? I've been in a business and this is something like business cards. And they're like, oh yeah, those are really great. Those look really good. I say, hey, fantastic. Would you like to start today with 250, 500 or 1,000 business cards today?
So you aren't giving them the option for no. You're just saying which quantity do you want?
That's right. And I make them say, and then I don't care if they say no because I've got something to say right afterwards.
Right. You're absolutely prepped for it. I think that's fantastic. We have a thing in our business. We'll have them on the phone. We'll have them captive, right? We'll go through the whole spiel. Hey, this refinance is going to make sense for you, or hey, let me do your pre-qualification for your mortgage.
Right.
And then we get the conversation. Some of my guys go, okay, great. Hey, I tell you what, I'm going to send you an email with a link to my application for you to fill out.
Oh,
ready. Oh my gosh, really? Are you really saying that right now? So I've told my guys, hey, when you get done with that application, say, hey, listen, do you have 5 extra minutes? Yeah, I do. Let me go ahead and get this application started for you right now. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
So you're still giving them an option, right? But you're saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and start it because out of 10 emails that you send saying, hey, fill my link out, you might get 3 back.
That's right.
Right. And it takes 5 or 6 minutes to start an application in our system. That's all you got to do is, hey, you know what? Really great combo. Let me go ahead and get you started. And if they say, hey, I want to think about it, so on and so forth. Sometimes they're going to say that. Even if you use the assumptive sale, they're still going to say, hey, I still want to think about it. And that's when you follow up with your tactics of asking a few questions, trying to reassure them, things like that. And the last possible thing that you do is say, oh, I'm going to send you an email with my application link.
No.
Fill it out if you want.
That's right. You got to remove the barriers to getting that sale. And again, if you really believe in your product and you believe in what's going to do for the person, and you're well prepped, there should be no awkwardness, right? Because you've got something great that they want. I'm gonna say this right now. If you're listening to this and you're in a multi-level scheme or you're selling Cutco knives, I don't care to call it out, or some other kind of juice blend, or
What's that? Amway? Was it Amway? Was that the
you're
one?
in Primerica or
Mary Kay?
Mary
Well, we've been
Kay.
going on.
Okay, listen. I'm not afraid to say those are scams, and if you don't believe in your product, you get the heck away from that product. If you're prepped about how to ask for the business and you still feel awkward, you might be selling a product that people don't need or you shouldn't need, or it's scammy, right? So that's how I overcome the awkward pieces, through preparation. And as soon as somebody's prepped, then you're just kind of going through the motions, and with energy and enthusiasm. Okay, we have time maybe for one or two more. Give me another excuse why people won't close.
All right. Well, I'm not going to give you an excuse. I'm going to give you of why they can't close. All right.
Fantastic.
And it starts with a story, short story.
Mhm.
That is, because I know we're running short on time here.
Can you talk about the donut man?
No, actually, the donut man came yesterday.
No way. Heck
Yeah,
yeah.
they were fantastic donuts.
Fantastic. Did you buy from
If
him?
you don't know what we're talking about, go back to our episode about partnering with mortgage guys for insurance agents.
Called the referral gold mine. You want to go listen to the donut man story?
Yeah, the donut man's fantastic. Anyway, he brought great donuts yesterday. I still have never sent him a deal. I've never sent him a deal, actually.
Never.
Yeah, like, so super nice guy. Okay, so when I got into specifically mortgage, so I've been in banking for 4 years at lose track. When I got into mortgage, I met with a guy who's actually went from my one bank is where he recruited me over here, but he put me through the ringer when I wanted to sell mortgage, because it's commission only and things like that, and it is a self-motivating business, right? And he said, hey, why do people do business with people? And I said, I said something stupid. I don't know what I said, but this is what he said to me, and I've used it. People do business if they know you, like you, and trust you. Okay.
Yeah.
Know you, like you, trust you. And if you miss one of those three parts and they're not in order, you're not going to sell. And this comes with being able to close, right? So do they know you? So that simply is, have you made the contact? Do they know who you are? Sometimes you have to make 10 contacts for them to know you, right? That's step one. You got to get past, do they know you, right? Second part, which is the hardest, because people go from know you to trust you or know you to sell. Do they like you, right? So if you get on the phone and you don't ask how their day is, and you don't get to know their family, and you don't know, they have to like you. Be witty, be funny, be something, right?
Right.
And then once they like you, so they know you, who you are, they like you as a person, they enjoy hanging out with you. Do they trust you, right?
Yeah.
So when I say, do they trust you? Do you give them good information? Are you afraid to tell them the negative information, right? Are you, as you would say, a guide, right? And not a salesman. Are you a guide? So do they trust you? And if you do those three things really well, you're going to land more than you won't land. Do they know you, like you, trust you? And I'll give you an example in mortgage. Guardian, well, anywhere you go, will probably never be the lowest rate, the lowest cost, right? But people will still buy from you if they know you, like you, and trust you. You are worth their money, okay? My insurance guy, I guarantee you I'm paying more. I could get it cheaper somewhere else, right?
Right.
But I know my guy, I like him, and I trust him. And to me, that's worth the money, right? So people don't close because they miss one of those steps. They don't take time for people to know who they are. They don't spend time being likable, right? Being relatable, right? And then finally, you don't give the behaviors that would make someone trust you. Like, hey, giving them tough information sometimes. Hey, this doesn't work this way, right? Or giving them false information, false hope. So know you, like you, trust you.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point, especially if you're in a commodity-based business, something that everybody sells. Everybody sells mortgages, guys. Everybody sells insurance.
Everybody
sells. Everybody sells it. So you've got to almost bust. In fact, I got a buddy named George Elosice who's got a mission to help decommoditize the insurance agency, and you do it by know, like, trust. That you're willing to even take a commodity, pay more for it because the person knows, likes, and trusts you. You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to think about it. Is that, am I likable? And here's the thing. I will tell you, some of the best salesmen that I know aren't super extroverts. They're just not, but there's something endearing about their presentation that makes people want to connect to them. That's huge, right? So you don't have to be a comedian. You definitely want to try to be lighthearted and witty and stuff like that. But you don't want to go into a sales opportunity where you're sullen or downcast or negative or overly negative, right? Because all these little things contribute. Everything from the way you're dressed, your hygiene, your amount of talking versus listening, right? A big way to bust somebody's trust and bust up somebody liking you is if your mouth is always going like this and you don't listen to them. These things are all things that contribute to the know, like, trust, and it's why people can't close, even if they're really great presenters. In fact, I've seen in the insurance world, I've seen team members who have the best sales numbers, but they're not the best pitch person. And you know why? Just because they're really good about helping people to know, like, and trust them. It's a great point.
Yep. And for me, it's the like thing. For me, it's the like. Do they like you? And a lot of times, and so that same guy is actually my boss today at a different bank, and he'll remind me sometimes, hey, do people still know you, like you, trust you? And if your numbers start to fall, examine that. Do they know you? Are you having enough contact? Do they like you? Are you spending enough time with them? Do they trust you? Are you giving good information? Are you managing expectations? Do they when you say a widget costs $5, does a widget cost $5 or does it cost $6.50?
Right? It's fantastic.
Are you telling them the right information?
That's right. All right, I'm gonna give I think the very last topic of the day, Kyle. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy with lots of demands on your life, but I want to give one more excuse that I've heard why people can't close. I want to see what you would say, and I'll also say what I would say. But here's the excuse. The reason I'm afraid to close is because what we're offering is really expensive. It's really expensive, and it makes it tough because I've got to throw the number out. When somebody asks, how much does it cost? You know what they're doing? They've gotten past the point of, do they appreciate what you're selling? They do, because they're now asking how much it costs, right?
Yes.
So they say, I'm afraid to tell them the price is because of how expensive it is. So what would you say?
Well, so if that is a non-closing thing, that goes into you are assuming that your client can't afford it.
Right? Great point.
You don't know what your client's price point is. And to be quite honest with you, assuming they can't afford it is a little bit, can't think of the word I'm trying to say here, but you shouldn't assume that they can't afford it, right?
Yeah.
We have people here at this bank who say, I can't sell closing calls because they assume that they don't want it. They assume that they can't afford it, right? I mean, people who drive, Porsches and Lamborghinis, I mean, they could buy a Ford or a Dodge, right?
That's right.
So, and if that salesman for that Lamborghini was like, oh, it's so expensive, you're not going to want it, right? You're just assuming they can't afford it. And that is a mega killer. Be proud of your pricing. Just know that your pricing offers a value to your client. In my opinion, my closing costs, even if they're higher, I'm fine with it because I know that what they're getting is they're getting me. They're getting Guardian. Right. They're getting me, right? So be proud of that. If it's front runner, they're getting an incredible suite of not only client management services, but it manages incomes, it manages commissions, it manages all. Right. Am I right in saying that?
Oh yeah.
So a little pitch for front runner.
I love it.
Know your worth. Okay, it's okay for someone to spend money when they want to spend money. It makes sense for them. Again, I pay more for my insurance every month, but it's worth it to me. Okay, don't call me saying I can offer you cheaper insurance. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
Right. So don't assume that it's too expensive for them. If your team member's afraid of telling them what the price is, they're number one, they're just assuming that the person can't afford it, or anything like that. What I will help my team members to understand is, okay, listen, if you're scared to tell them the price, right, be ready to offer some what I call micro commitments. micro commitments. All right. And again, this might be applicable to every product line, but are there some micro commitments that you can offer that will help people get to the big commitment? You know who's really good at this? Cell phone salesmen, right? They in cell phone advertising, they are incredible at micro commitments. Hey, come on in, $35 online, unlimited everything. Okay. Hey, that's fantastic. What happens though is that when you get in the room with them, there's so many ancillary things that they're going to offer you that lead up to what they're really trying to sell. And it ain't $35. It's probably $110, $120, $150 a month. They don't care about that, right? Because they care about the micro commitment. So is there something in your product line that you're selling that can be a micro commitment, and that will help you to present the price? For instance, with FrontRunner, even though we're incredibly affordable, our micro commitment is that, hey, our price is $119 a month. You're going to be grandfathered into that price for life. And our prices actually are slated to go up. But here's the deal. Really, I'd love for you just to try it for 30 days. There's no contracts. There's no setup fees. If in 30 days it's not for you, all you got to do is tell me, and we can just part as friends. And so the micro commitment that I'm asking for them is I'm asking for 15 minutes. Hey, give me 15 minutes for an onboarding form, and let's just get your team going for 30 days. At the end of that 30 days, I think you're going to love it. And from that point on, it's 119, right? So is there some sort of a micro commitment at my print shops? Whenever I go into, in fact, the biggest customer I have, that customer does $350,000 a year with us in printing. Oh, by the way, that's a lot of paper, bro. That's a lot. That's a lot of paper. You know what
You're killing a lot of trees, dude.
I'm so sorry, Rainforest Committee, but I will tell you, the first sale was business cards. It was a set of business cards that another printer couldn't get done in time for them, right? Ooh. And I wanted everything, right? So I didn't worry about throwing out the whole kit and caboodle, right? All I said is, hey, let's get these business cards done for you today. And I got them to make that micro commitment. It earned me another appointment. Now we're the national printer for big ass fans. And so I don't care that I don't have a non-disclosure there. So if your team member's afraid of telling them the price, maybe help them to come up with some micro commitments, even if the micro commitment is a commitment to another conversation or a commitment to a day and time that you can come by and see them, or a micro commitment that you can drop off a sample of whatever you're selling, right? Get them to say yes to a micro commitment in the same breath as giving them the big price, and then they're more apt to do it.
Hey, you know what? That micro commitment's super interesting. I've never had to call that, but for instance, when we get into realtors' offices, hey, can you use us as your preferred lender? We don't say, give me it all. I want all your conventional, your FHA. Right. Say, we've got this really unique product, and I'm not going to advertise for it, but we say, hey, I'll tell you what it is. It's a bridge loan. We do bridge loans.
Yep.
And so I say, hey, I know you have your lender, and that's fine. Okay. But if you have someone who wants to be non-contingent on a property, but doesn't want to sell their house, give me a call. Just give me those deals. I'll leave you alone about the rest. And then when I get one, I knock it out of the park. And they say, you know what? Can you do this too?
Boom. Yes.
Can you do this? All of a sudden, I have it all. And I've got two examples. I would love if we had time, I'd give them to you. That's how it started. I said, hey, let me just be the guy that you come to when someone wants a non-contingent offer through my we call it a blanket loan program. Okay, cool. I'll call you. Call was happened. I knocked it out of the park. Now I do everything for this person. Everything.
Huge. Boy, I tell you what a crazy good episode, crazy good conversation.
Always is.
With Kyle Norsworthy from Guardian Savings. Kyle, any final words for our listeners before we let you go today?
No, I would say for me, if you're a manager, if you're a sales guy, the biggest thing I want you to take away from this, if I look at all my points, is figure out what motivates your employees. To me, that's the key takeaway. And that was probably the reason why they're not selling. Something is wrong in that structure. That's number one. Number two, figure out if your salespeople really are salespeople. Maybe they're not geared, and that's okay, but you got to figure out how to either coach them up or coach them out. I kind of hate that phrase, but some people, like, I will never be an artist, right? Maybe I just fell into it by the wrong reason. So that would be my two encouragements for you as sales leaders.
That's right. That's right. Man, Kyle, thanks again for your
My
time
pleasure.
in this episode. We're actually going to drop in the comments his contact information if he can help you or your team with any kind of sales or in the mortgage process. I got to give you a pitch. You're not going to pitch yourself. I'll pitch you. He's the best mortgage officer in the business. Kyle, thanks again.
Hey, appreciate your time, guys, and hey, keep listening to this guy. He will lead you in the right direction. So
We're gonna
hopefully be
try.
on a show here in the future at some point. We'll make it a regular thing.
Oh, he'll be back. He'll be back. Thanks, Kyle. All right, that's going to be it for episode number 28 of To the Front. Boy, there were some bangers in there, right? So you need to bookmark this episode, come back each week, and you're going to get more and more and more. Hey, if you've got some things that you want us to talk about, drop me an email. It's adam@imafrontrunner.com. You could also shoot me a message if you're watching this on YouTube. You can connect with our team. Would love to be able to address questions that you have about how to lead your business, how to lead your insurance agency to the front. Can't wait till episode number 29. We have an incredible coach coming on to talk about something that we've never talked about on To the Front. So until then, go lead your business, go lead your insurance agency with courage. And as I always say, go lead for something that's about more than money, something that will outlive you, and you'll never second guess what you're doing ever again in life. Until then, take care.